Hi everyone, I'm Terry Proto. I'm CEO of Virtual Reality Marketing. I am thrilled to be here with you today. I want to welcome everyone who's here with us at the Beach House and also those who are watching us online too. So let's start with a few words about us. For the past few years, we've been on a mission to connect enterprises with leading XR creators. Our site, virtualrealitymarketing.com, is the largest showcase of immersive companies. We have listed more than 3,000 XR creators on the site, and we believe we are the largest library of XR case studies with more than 600 AR and VR case studies across all verticals. With our group Reality Innovators Network, we are the largest online XR community, and we're closing on 70,000 members. And we're finally a business consultancy specialized in AR and VR. Our goal is really to be a guide of the business metaverse, and we like to say, that we love to inspire, educate, and facilitate immersive business. And by the way, if you need help finding the right metaverse partner, I know that we keep hearing that people have a hard time finding partners they can trust. Well, we can help you with that. You can get in touch with us at hello@virtualrealitymarketing.com or click on the links that are on the side of the main stage.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today again. We have 2 instances today going at one time, which means that one room can't fit everyone in it, which is a great thing. So you all can't, there's some people that can't see each other, but everybody that's a host, you'll be able to see them and interact with them. And you also have the option, if you want to later on during the networking portion, to switch to a different room. It'll put you potentially in a different room, so you could talk to other people that are in the different instances. If you have if you have questions that you want to ask, either I or Terry or Deb or any of the hosts or Roger.
Before we start, I want to thank Michelle, Deborah, and the team of Red Cowboy Hats to make sure everything is running smoothly for everyone today. I want to thank Spine for loaning us this beach house. We've made some changes this week, and instead of meeting at night, we are meeting in a beautiful daylight. And last thing I will say, I'm really to welcome RogerSkidmore, EX, to this company has embarked on a very ambitious mission. They are creating a global digital twin. They're creating a geospatial digital twin of the entire planet. And that has tons of key applications in telecom and utilities or urban planning. So can we please give a warm welcome to Roger? And Sophia, I'll let you take it from here.
Terry, Sophia, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, Roger, can you hear me?
Yep. Awesome. Everybody put your emojis up for Roger. Awesome. Welcome, Roger. So nice to have you. Before we go into this discussion today, which is super interesting and relevant, and the digital twins are like the hot topic of XR because it's just so relatable to us in the real world, because we can literally transfer over the physical reality and what we know in our reality to these virtual worlds. So it's kind of like a very obvious application of the technology. But I did want to mention, Terry mentioned that VRM, as our experts pretty much. But I know there's a lot of you in here that are already in the XR space as well. So I just wanted to briefly mention that that VRM are experts in also doing all of the marketing kind of positioning of our companies in this space for growth and for customer acquisition and those types of things. That kind of like is what the bread and butter of what this company was born out of, because we saw the need for that in this space. The traditional marketing agencies weren't able to really understand and articulate what this technology was, and so we saw the need as diverse experts to to be able to advocate on behalf of XR agencies. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. Lots of stuff of what we're involved with. But going on to the main course of this event, we have RogerSkidmore here from EDX. So thank you, Roger, for being with us today. And let's start, first of all, to as many questions as we can at the end. And then Roger will also stick around to answer as many questions as he can during the networking portion. With that said, Roger, would you like to briefly introduce yourself and what you're doing at EDX?
Sure. Thank you very much, Sophia. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And wow, this is quite the crowd. I wasn't expecting anywhere near this many folks that turn out. So thank you very much. I'll try to make it worth your time. So hello, everyone. I'm RogerSkidmore. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called EDX Technologies. We are in the space of spatial computing. It's a pretty broad umbrella. We focus on digital twins and how you navigate the content of digital twins in the real world. We basically form a kind of a crossover point between the virtual makeup of a digital twin and its instantiation in the real world. And we provide mechanisms for kind of collaborative multi-user interactivity around that digital twin, whether you're at your desktop or whether you're on a mobile device in the field. So I'm happy to be here and happy to talk more about what we do and how we do it.
Awesome. So you have some slides to go along with this presentation today. So Roger, when you need the slides moved along, just give a shout out, and somebody in our hosting panel will help that. Okay, so Roger, can you talk about why this technology will become foundational for the building of the metaverse?
Sure.
And global digital twins.
So I'll go ahead and give my shout out to advance the slides, I guess. So I guess a little bit of background. At EDX, we basically host, well, first off, if you're wearing a VR headset, take it off briefly and look around you. There's a real world out there, and that real world has tons and tons of information and data within it that's just waiting on someone to come along and want to interact with it. So what we do at EDX is we host a renderable, to-scale, three-dimensional digital twin of the planet Earth. That's a big concept. It's a big planet out there. We then allow any third parties or individuals to kind of layer their own data, to put their own content, their own information into that global digital twin. And then that multi-layered construct, that kind of multi-layered engine, then allows you to collaboratively and with any number of users kind of interact with that content, distribute content, consume it from either a desktop or mobile devices in the field. Anywhere where there's an internet connection, you can get live updates at the speed of latency. That's a term I like to throw out there, speed of latency. Or if you're offline, you've got cached information available for you to access. So at the core, we form sort of a nexus between any information that has a positionable component to it or an actionable component to it, and the ability for anyone to interact with that information from any location. The raw underlying 3D geospatial information that we provide really acts as a backbone or a framework or a skeleton, if you will, that any future information or any future users or content providers can take and leverage to position or to hang their content, manage it, see how it's going to look, see how it's going to feel before it's actually distributed out for people to consume it when they're in the real world. It kind of becomes a canvas for content, if you will. And this introduces really a new level in terms of the way that you can exchange information, the way you can stage content and manage it and distribute it to people that you're looking to reach out and touch. So by instantiating and rendering content to scale within a global digital twin, you kind of form a true 3D virtual representation of your real world thing. So it's a digital twin of your information, but it's also a renderable, visual or audio representation of that content. So we then provide a mechanism for a user to incorporate that digital twin kind of wherever it's instantiated at in the real world. So if you have a digital twin of like a manufacturing floor, or you have a digital twin of an automobile or a fire truck, where is that actual device placed within the real world? Where is the fire truck currently, or where is that factory currently located at? What part of the planet is it's in? Be able to position that content, stage it where it's actually located in space, and then as any users in the real world approach that space, they'll have access to interact with that content that's adjacent to them or at least nearby to them. So we then provide mechanisms for users that are actually roaming the real world with their mobile devices to interact with all that spatial information directly on that mobile device. Basically, essentially, as a user roams through the real world, they're simultaneously navigating that 3D digital twin that we've constructed. And as the user is moving around through that through the real world, they're also moving around through the content digital twin. And then any subset of that content, any of that layered content information that's in that digital twin that they have access to, or that's relevant to them, or is they needed for the task they're looking to do in the real world, it can then be staged on their device as renderable content to scale. Usually as augmented reality or mixed reality content that the user can interact with. And so that kind of is a fundamental premise that alone is pretty powerful on its face. Today, the way we monetize this solution and the way we offer it out into the industry today is essentially looking to address multiple B2B use cases in utility sector, telecommunications sector, construction sector, government and defense sectors. These are all verticals that we're currently targeting and have engagements in today. So at the crux of it, we kind of form this nexus between all the virtual, what you term kind of metaverse content that's out there that may be purely virtual in nature, but has some ties to the real world or overlaps with an actual physical location or a physical device in the real world, with the actual representation of that real world as a digital twin itself. And so we kind of become this compounded digital twin of sorts, where a digital twin you construct to represent a certain thing or asset in the real world gets incorporated into the larger digital twin of the actual planet that we host, and then we enable you to kind of interact with it. And those enablements for interacting the resulting data are also things that we provide. So we provide mechanisms for people with mobile devices to be able to interact with that content as augmented reality or mixed reality, as well as people with their desktop to interact with it as virtual content.
Okay, so can you talk about some of the use cases of how companies leverage EDX's geospatial data?
Sure. So in context, there's a couple of them that I'd probably point to kind of immediately. You can go ahead and advance the slides. One is basically a wireless communications use case. So the company EDX, if you go and you look up EDX Technologies, you'll eventually come across EDX Wireless, their sister companies. EDX Wireless was actually formed back in 1985. It's been around for a long time. It kind of turned out that the wireless communication industry has been one of the major drivers of ever-increasing accuracy of 3D spatial information. So, if every time you go on and you look at a model of a city, for example, you can pretty much think the wireless communication industry as one of the drivers that led for kind of ever-increasing, ever-improving ability to capture information of a three-dimensional nature to build and construct that model for you. Because with each successive generation of wireless communications, just think of the G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. With each successive generation of wireless communications, the needs of the wireless industry to understand the physical environment and to understand where the buildings are and where the trees are with ever-increasing degree of precision has been a necessity. So with say 3G communications, when they were rolling out 3G networks, state of the art and the needs of the wireless communication industry said that if you had data that was, say, 100 feet or 30 meters in resolution, meaning at every 30 meters you had an idea what was at that location, that was kind of sufficient for building out 3G networks. Today with 5G, particularly in urban areas, the industry will tell you that you need, better than 5 feet. Close to 1 meter resolution in terms of knowing every 5 feet or every 1 meter what's there. Is it a building? How tall is it? Is it a tree? How tall is it? Because that type of information is necessary to guarantee quality service and to guarantee coverage, to guarantee that you have a certain number of bars on your phone, etc. So EDX actually grew up out of that as an industry. And so throughout our lifespan as a company, we've dealt with this ever-increasing resolution of geodata and the demands for ever-increasing resolution of geodata until ultimately we have a full three-dimensional representation of the planet Earth that we source out to our customers for doing wireless communication, use cases and satisfying that industry. So we basically have kind of come along or rode the wave, so to speak, of the telecommunications industry and the demands of the industry to have ever-increasing geospatial information of a certain resolution to get us to the point we are today. So a key use cases for us kind of pursuing that same thread and in that same space is of the ability to design, deploy wireless networks and to maintain those assets going forward. So you can go ahead and move forward one slide, please. So within that context, there's a continuum of designing wireless communication networks all the way through to kind of maintaining them and deploying them. And what we found today is that over 50 years of deploying networks, a lot of the operators today really have almost no idea, in a lot of cases, where all their equipment is, or what that equipment is, where it's located, how it's built out, how it's deployed, what's actually there. And so what we provide is the ability to combine information about where the physical assets are from a design point of view. So planning out where you're going to put your equipment, what tower it's going to go on, what particular make, model, serial number, part number, or device you're putting it at what height on the tower, cabling, connectors, all the various components that go into design, funnel up into our solution set is captured within it. And then we attach a computational engine on top of that that can capture, can simulate the performance of that equipment. So it basically builds a as designed digital twin of all the equipment on a particular wireless communication site, how it's going to perform. And by introducing that into a geospatial representation of the area, you can capture very effectively how well this particular configuration of equipment is going to perform at any location within that geographic area. And then we bubble that all up into a cloud to where a network operator then has end-to-end across their entire network a digital twin of their complete operating network with computational engines that can keep it up to date in terms of how it's performing at any moment in time. And then carrying that forward, that digital twin of their complete network over onto it introduces a continuum of transitioning from the as designed build out, where I'm planning to put equipment, into the as built, maintaining the equipment, fixing things as it breaks, or upgrading a site to new technologies, replacing equipment as it ages out. All that can be accommodated all within the context of digital twin, and any change that's made at any level can be bubbled up into the the digital twin at the entire complete end-to-end network side of things, to where any ripple effects that may take place, or any gradual build-out changes or plans that are being made, anyone operationally within that wireless operator has full visibility and insights into how that complete network is functioning end to end. So this introduces the ability of leveraging a digital twin throughout the entire life cycle of not only individual tower sites and individual pieces of equipment, but across the entire life cycle of a network, and provides operators the ability to really get a better handle on their day-to-day operations, and also their longer-term plans for updating and migrating the network up to kind of the next G, so to speak. So the telecommunications market is one of the key verticals for us. Next slide.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Sophia.
I was just going to input that this is definitely, when we talk about Industry 4.0 and connecting the physical and the virtual, this is exactly what we mean by that. And this is a really key use case across many industries, especially those that involve physical facilities that are highly dependent on the efficiency and the operations of those physical facilities in the manufacturing environment.
Right. Yeah. So we've this type of technology, kind of combining a digital twin to this scale, with being able to take, each little tower site, you can kind of visualize that as being its own digital twin, even down to each individual transceiver, radio, connect up to the tower site being its own digital twin. This compounding of digital twins with computational engines that handle the interactivity of the equipment, overlaid then with sensor networks that can, kind of correlate the simulation of the device with its actual current kind of performance characteristics. And rolling that all up into this interactive kind of multi-user collaborative platform for exchanging information at this kind of macro scale is pretty powerful, and it's one of the key kind of engagement areas that we have today in the telecommunications space. Which brings me to kind of specific use cases for XR content distribution and kind of field productivity increases. So going on to the next slide. One of our key engagements, strategic engagements that we have today is with none other than Oracle. Oracle has piles and piles and ever-increasing piles of data of all types. A typical customer engagement where we go into with Oracle has a half dozen or more different back-end data collection systems, different back-end data management systems that are all basically targeted verticals within that particular customer for exchanging information. You may have a customer information system, you may have a network management system, you may have an IoT sensor cloud that's recording information and collecting it. You may have an outage management system. All of these different piles of data have kind of grown up over the past multiples of decades to kind of target particular use cases, particular engagements within particular customer vertical. Go ahead.
Hey, Roger, while you're going through this, first of all, look at all the people that are looking at your slides. It's obviously really great content over there. While you're going through this, maybe talk about also what you predict is the next evolution to digital twin technology, and kind of future cast a little bit.
This is kind of gonna fly into this a little bit. So our engagement with Oracle is basically our digital twin at macro scale overlays all those piles of data and provides spatial context to all the information, and then to a certain extent aggregates the information into an easily to digest, easily navigable interface that a user in the field can simply literally take their tablet, look around, and instead of having to drive down through each individual separate application that has screens and so forth for each individual pile of data, everything's just presented in front of them as an easy to digest interface for consuming it. It puts it all in the context, spatial awareness, what's around them. Going forward, where this really gets interesting is where you start attaching this information onto machine learning and artificial intelligence, and you begin connecting this type of content up to a digital assistant. So you're interacting with the system through natural language processing to get information. You have an AI system that can begin correlating the piles and piles of information on the back end with what's actually important to you, to this field worker at this point in time, so that they're not overwhelmed with information all presenting to them at one point. So this type of content connecting these ever increasingly complex digital twin information with machine learning and with kind of natural language or natural interactions with the user, I think is going to be a key kind of next step in the technology. When you combine that with the spatial processing capabilities that are emerging, with the device in your hands to be able to map the surrounding area, and then think about being able to take all that real-time mapping information, all that real-time three-dimensional construction that's being done by everyone's mobile device in the field, with being able to capture the information and actually incorporate it into a mutable kind of three-dimensional macro scale rendering. So our 3D global digital twin, for example, will be continually kept up to date with mobile user processing of 3D information that's local to their area. So in local areas where people are located, that captured information that's being done for the most part in the background of their device becomes part of the living, breathing, ever increasingly resolution, granular resolution model at the macro scale of the 3D planet. basically the entire planet becomes a living, breathing model that people are contributing to. And when you start thinking around those lines, you start drilling down and pulling on those threads about the amount of content, the amount of information being exchanged to actually make that work. Suddenly, the advent of the next generation of wireless with like 6G wireless becomes a very interesting topic, because the ever-increasing bandwidth that 6G is going to bring with, ideally also the decrease in latency that's going to be brought to the table, really means that this level of data exchange collaboratively, not even really beyond collaboratively, on a global scale, information data exchange about everything around your environment continually, that type of data flow and kind of the next generation of what the internet's going to evolve to, all begin blurring together into kind of one melded amoeba of like blob to a certain extent. So this is where I see all of this eventually heading and evolving into.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks, Roger. Appreciate it. I know we have.
Really impressive.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and yeah, no worries. We're starting to get some questions actually in the panel, so I'm gonna start calling on some of the people here, and please do continue to raise your hands as we do have some questions. So let's go with Jimmy Sixtoff. Jimmy.
Thanks for letting me in. Amazing presentation. Robert, thank you for explaining the level of detail that you're already going into, having experience with operations, now bringing in with that. I'm wondering how you feel this is working, because there are several different stacks that are trying to accomplish something similar. Let's say what Google has with their map data, Niantic stuff that was released just recently over the last month or two. You have Eighth Wall. There's a company that won a award at the recent session in California, the Augmented World event that just took place. I mean, there's several different people that are moving in this, but do you see any standards evolving, would be my question.
I think eventually the ability to exchange information across the various platforms that are evolving is going to be a requirement. I think that that's going to be a conversation that it will have to evolve. There's already obviously ways of exchanging. I deal with hundreds of different file formats today, unfortunately, but to have kind of one file format to rule them all, to exchange across the different platforms, is definitely something that will need to evolve, because you're correct. There are numerous entities that are approaching this from, for the most part, different directions today, and they all have their own particular market verticals, have their own sights set on particular aspects of the market, but they all share the common frame of reference of information with a spatial reference to it. And so I think being able to exchange information across tiers, so to speak, is going to be important. But I haven't really seen, there are some standards out there for kind of OpenAR data exchanges, and also lots of content around kind of OpenGIS data exchanges. But I think there needs to be some kind of higher level discussion being had that kind of bridges the gap across the different silos where those conversations have been having had up to now.
Because I know there's a lot of work already in smart cities and in internet industry 4.0 that we're looking at, and you're feeding an additional layer into those, and so interoperability does become, especially on the data point perspective, is going to be useful for you, ingesting and producing.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you.
Awesome, thank you. So we had some hands raised and hands have fallen, so we'll go with one more, unless we have another one that comes up after this. Subho. Subho?
Hi. Hello.
Please come
so
forward
my
a little
question
bit.
is-
We can't really see you. That's
there we go.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
I don't know how. Okay, okay. So my question is how this blockchain and script how this how this blockchain can be integrated with this kind of metaverse. Like for example, so how this blockchain or this crypto thing can be integrated with this kind of like platform, or people will be integrating blockchain with this kind of metaverse or not?
Wow, that's a whole can of worms there. That's probably another whole presentation there, Terry and Sophia. So the short answer is
I'm just going to make it hard for you and say you have like 2-3 minutes to answer that question.
3 minutes. The short answer is yes. The longer answer is, depending on, there's lots of asterisks and caveats next to that. So we've been in contact and engagements where, everything about, one thing that's inherent in our platform is the ability to handle content securely. So end-to-end control of content, making sure that it is, that the people that create the content have control of it no matter where it goes, no matter who consumes it, which is inherently, fundamentally also part and parcel of the thread of where blockchain leads you to. And so we are engaged in conversations with integrating directly blockchain content into our platform, both in terms of content control and tracking and mechanisms, but also in terms of just managing transactions. So being able to affect, if you want to purchase something virtually, to be able to do that securely within the context of the platform. Those are all conversations that are very active at this point in time. And like I said, I'll be happy to come back and give a separate presentation on that one, because that in and of itself is a huge separate topic area that is important, absolutely. But there's no way I could give it what it deserves in 3 minutes that Terry gave me.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say to that at a high level is this isn't just revolved around AR and VR, as most of us know. It's going to be the integration of a bunch of emerging technologies that kind of work coherently together to create additional capabilities that we haven't experienced today, and that includes the integration of crypto and blockchain NFTs with AR and VR. I commonly describe the AR and VR as the whereas there's so many other layers to it, that including AI and blockchain and others, even integrating the real world aspects, of physical aspects, like maybe even robotics. All this geospatial capabilities, 5G, all of these things are going to be layers to what make up this, what will become, the metaverse. And AR and VR are a key part, but they are a part of it, though. So it is important to keep having discussions like this. Yeah. Terry, I don't know if we have one more question. I don't know if we have time for that, another question, but if not, we can move on to networking.
I think we're out of time for the questions. It's already 11:50. I want to thank you, Roger. Thank you so much, because it's a really complex topic, and 20 minutes goes by at the speed of light. So it's always a little bit difficult to have you stop there, but I think it was a great start. And now we are moving on to the breakouts. So if it's the first time you're joining us in the house, we've got 4 breakout rooms. One is on the beach, and we've got 2 in the lower level of the house. And if you cross the house, there's a 4th one in the basketball field. And basically at this point of the event, you can, the house is yours. You can mingle, ask questions, and get to know the people who follow you. We like to always have a breakout question. So the breakout question for today is, have you ever used a digital twin in a business setting? And if so, how did that provide value to you? And without further ado, I'll let you move on to the breakouts. And Roger, maybe you can stick around a little bit to answer more questions of those who had hands raised and couldn't ask you questions. All right, so this is the first of the first hour. And if you've been here before, this is the beginning of after hours. And you know the principle, the house is yours, and you can feel free to continue connecting with people here. But for all of those of you who are watching us online, this is goodbye. I want to thank you for making the time to join us today, and see you next time. And for those of us who are in the house with us, well, the house is yours, and thank you as well.